Good evening. And let me first begin by thanking God for bringing us all safely here this evening, and I hope and pray that our returns back to our respective destinations will be equally as safe. First, to Chair Salem, to Jim Zogby, to Maya Berry, to everyone that is supportive of the Arab American Institute, and to my fellow honorees. It is always moving, and I was a little teary-eyed doing this video because, of course, my mom and sister are no longer in our midst. And so to see the family together, in a sense, and see that there are ways that we each are attempting to carry on the unfinished work. We do live in a great nation. What makes it great is that people have the right to articulate their point of view, even when sometimes we may not agree with their point of view. But that's what makes this a great nation. I am so thankful for my personal relationship with Jim Zogby and for all that he and his team have done over the years to continue to raise the consciousness of this nation and the world around issues that we still have a lot of work to do on. Now, on behalf of my father and my mother, I accept this award this evening. Both of them dedicated their lives to creating a better community. Dad and Mom wanted to eradicate what Dad called were the triple evils of poverty, racism, militarism, and violence. If we examine those three things, we certainly see that we've made strides around race, but we're not quite there yet. We still have work to do. But if we look at poverty in our nation today and even 50 years ago, poverty continues to escalate right on the streets of Washington, D.C. as we came in today, but not just Washington, Atlanta, Chicago, Los Angeles, all of our cities. We have homeless people in a multi-trillion-dollar nation. It makes no sense. It is because we, as our fellow human beings, have not decided that we're going to change that. I don't mean giving people just some food. That is good, and sometimes we have to do that. But I'm talking about creating opportunities so that people are taught how to fish, so that they can make a living for themselves and their families, and a sustainable living in this country, of all countries. With all of this wealth, we should be ashamed of some of the conditions that exist because we can and we must do better. I believe my dad and mom would be challenging us in that direction if they were in our midst. And that's perhaps why I said, although it's wonderful to come to these anniversaries, the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act that President Johnson signed, next year, the 50th anniversary of what used to be the Voting Rights Act, which is now sort of neutralized because the court chose to abolish or decimate limit Section 4 and decimate Section 5 of the preclearance provision of the Voting Rights Act. And yet, it's always interesting to me, we as a nation go around the world promoting democracy, and that's wonderful. But yet it's sad, or a sad commentary, that at home we seem to be trying to suppress the right to vote. It seems like that's inconsistent. Yes, we should be concerned about voter fraud if we can find it. But to create new laws to restrict people from voting is certainly unconscionable. We can and we must do better. And as I think about militarism and violence, which is so prevalent, again, across our nation, I mean, I'm a little embarrassed to live in a state that just a couple of days ago our governor signed the most unrestrictive gun law bill that exists on the books today. So that now you can bring guns to church, you can bring guns to schools, you can bring guns to bars. Of all places, that's where all the fights start, in the bar. And so now you're saying, well, you can bring your gun, and that's supposed to make it better. It seems like we are a lot higher and can operate at a higher level than the lower level. And that level of, and the final point about that legislation is our governor and the legislature said, you can bring guns to all these places, but you can't bring them in the Capitol where we work. Don't you think that's a little bit inconsistent? To say, well, you can bring guns here, there, but you can't bring them where we work, as opposed to trying to protect all society. So I just ask you to pray for us in Georgia, and there probably will be other states that try to follow suit. I mean, we have a lot of good people, but we got a lot of work to do. Now, militarism and violence collectively, although we have created peace or attempted to create peace around the world, there's a lot of chaos we all know about, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's on the African continent, whether it's in South America, whether it's in Mexico, our neighbor, whether it's in our own neighborhood. Violence and militarism kind of are engaged at all times. I long for the day when we become a better nation. And the best, I believe, is yet to come. Technology has connected us around the globe. In a matter of seconds, we can find out information. Unfortunately, some of the technology is used for counterproductive purposes. But technology ultimately must be used for productive purposes to elevate the quality of living and life throughout our world. So I only wanted to suggest that Dad and Mom's work is not done. But each of us know that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first steps. And so we must continue to roll up our sleeves and work to make the world better. Yes, make our communities better. I mean, Dad used to tell us you can be either like a thermometer or a thermostat. And you may say, well, that is an interesting analogy. Please explain a little further. Well, a thermometer is a great device, but all it does is record the temperature. If it's 60, it'll say 60, 70, 70. If it's 20 or below, it'll say that. It even says, some of them say below. They do. But that's a great device, but all it does is record the temperature. There's another device called a thermostat. The thermostat regulates the temperature. If it's too hot, you turn it down. If it's too cold, you turn it up. So in life, we've got to decide whether we're going to just record history or whether we're going to be a part of regulating what takes place throughout our lives, throughout our nation, throughout our world. I believe human beings must be engaged to help regulate what takes place in our communities. And finally, I share this, which I know the Arab American Institute is doing, but each of us can actively or must continue to actively engage in this way. When I was a youngster, my mom took me to her undergraduate institution, which was Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And at that college, there was a statue of the educator Horace Mann. It was not the statue that made an indelible impact on me, but the inscription under the statue, or on the statue, which said, "Be ashamed to die until you've won a victory for humanity." Be ashamed to die until you've won a victory for humanity. You may say, oh my gosh, well, Brother King, that's grandiose. No, We can win victories in our neighborhoods. We can win victories in our schools. We can win victories in our places of worship. Some of us will win victories in our cities. Others may win victories in our states. Some of us may win victories in our nation. And then there are those who will win victories in our world. Basically, what those words say are be ashamed to die until you've done a little something to make the world in which we all must live a little better than it was when you arrived. Thank you so much, and may God continue to bless each of you always.